you were part of Salesforce's early days, late 90s. What employee number were you? 10 or 11?
I was number 11. Yeah.
Number 11. Unbelievable. And I'm assuming that was a visionary culture when you joined. Is that correct?
I would say Benioff is definitely indexes very high on the visionary side. And certainly, what appeals to him and what appeals to me, one of his idols was Steve Jobs. Certainly because, that's the spirit and ethos of Silicon Valley in many ways. And so absolutely. But I think, having started my company maybe a little bit later in my career than other founders do, and having gone through the journey of Salesforce, we were probably close to $1 billion. Mark did appreciate the need for execution, right? Coming out of kind of Oracle, right? He saw that level of scale. And I certainly saw that as well. So probably there's a higher degree of appreciation for execution of having, gone through a career before I started a company. But when I work with younger founders, it's definitely, okay, you haven't seen the level of scale yet. Let me help you understand what scale actually means.
Yeah. I'm curious to know how those other two were bolstered, the execution and the relationship building or the relationship management in your early days at Salesforce, because Mark Benioff is a visionary. You're a visionary. You're just number 11 as an employee. Did he hire for those others, or how is that managed?
So the research and the short answer is it's hard as a founder to go from not being good at something to great. And so you're not trying to go from good to great. You're trying to go from good to average at best, competent. But, what I try to, when I'm coaching founders is learn to appreciate what these things are and learn to hire. You're absolutely right. You have to hire for complementary skills, right? And then one of the hardest things about the founder is letting go. And so how do you delegate? How do you understand that these are the things that I'm not good at? They're important for the company. How do I delegate that? And delegate doesn't mean you hand it off and you walk away, right? Delegate means you actually have to find a way to build trust, to build accountability, to coach in areas that, hey, how do I coach a manager of execution if that's not my strong suit? And there are certainly ways to do that. And so those are the techniques and those are the skills ultimately: delegation, accountability, coaching, letting go, hiring well, that surprise, really pull up to the top that all founders really need to learn how to do.
And I think it requires an incredible amount of self-awareness and humility to admit those things. Like I'm not really good at these things. And so we need to bring other people in, or I need to bring in a coach to help bolster my abilities in these areas.
So when we looked at, it's just, so self-awareness is a key thing. Then a lot of founders have this narcissistic streak, right? Probably because that's what convinced them, oh yeah, I can go do this thing. I can go create this company and I can go take that leap. You have to have some level of self-confidence. And so what we looked at was, well, again, we looked at personality. What are the things that make the biggest difference between successful founders and unsuccessful founders? And we measured that based on, multiple of invested capital, right? Did I create a good return? And what we saw really was there were 5 things, right? You looked at all the personality aspects, they clustered into 5 specific things. There was an adaptability cluster. So it turns out that founders, even though they can see the future in many ways, or they think they can, they sometimes get a little stuck and they're not adaptable. And there's a self-confidence bias. If your initial idea kind of worked out, that kind of appears as well. So adaptable founders were the biggest difference. Learning to work through others. Founders tend to be lone wolves when you look at their personality profiles. So, the good ones, the successful ones understand, hey, I can't do this alone. I've got to work through others. I got to learn how to not just browbeat others or, into submission, but actually understand people and get them working well, what motivates them, and so on and so forth. There's systems. So I often use an analogy of a self-driving car to appeal to these technical founders. Like, how do you set up your company as a self-driving car? So if you step out of it, things are still kind of moving. That really requires systems, processes, and so on and so forth. There's one about personal grounding, but the 5th one that we saw was self-awareness. That successful founders, you can see this in their personality profiles. They possess this level of self-awareness, and that looked like it was the foundation that allowed them to learn and all the other skills, right? To learn how to be adaptable, to learn how to work through others. And it wasn't a level of self-awareness. They didn't understand that the problems that they were seeing ultimately were being caused by how they were managing, And so self-awareness, the ability to look in the mirror and understand, your personality and how that's affecting the companies that you're running was a critical factor in the whole thing.